Okay, it's 5:01, and we're going to start the Town of Sangerville Board of Selectmen meeting. It's Wednesday, December 19, 2018. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 2 is approval of the December 5, 2018 minutes.
Make a motion to approve the December 5th, 2018 minutes.
Second.
Any further? None? We vote. All three are in favor. Item 3, review of the treasurer's warrants. Payroll 157, 158, accounts payable 159.
Make a motion to approve A and B as read.
Second.
Those in favor? Unanimous. Open session. Anybody like to speak? Not right now? Moving along. Selectmen's concerns. Any? Just the wood.
Just the wood, and Toby's supposed to be picking it up on East Sangerville, and I went down today, and he still hasn't done that.
Yep, okay. The Eastland one is I could see Warren's actually plowing around it already.
Yes.
So that one's got
But you talked to Isler.
I talked to Kelly, and he said that his boy thought he found a home for it, but that's about as much commitment as I got. I don't have a timetable, and it's dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, even the plowing, but even if someone just were not paying attention, this thing is not gonna move when they hit it.
Right.
So anyway, I would say we're probably, if we can't move it, we need to have some cones or barrels up, I would think. Something. It's
Mike,
that
what
bad.
lengths are they cut at? What, is it
Oh,
eight
it's not.
long, right? It's not.
In some
Oh,
cases,
It's a whole bit.
yeah, they just dropped
Oh.
it. Because the crews that did this, they had a bucket truck and a saw, but they didn't have a piece of equipment that could pick up.
Right. Right.
So where it fell was pretty much where it stayed.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Well, I wonder, I mean, worst case scenario, if we have to, if we can't get anybody to get them out of there, even if Eastler's wants it, it's in the roadway. We can get Seth or Warren or somebody to take it.
yeah, I would say we're at a point
and
where
just-
we pay one of those guys to at least get it off the shoulder.
Well, Toby's supposed to be picking up on East Sangerville, and if he will do that, I'll have him do the same on French's Mill.
Yeah, Kelly has a tractor, but I am not sure it's capable of moving it. So
Okay.
That's not a good sign.
it's, yeah.
Is it covered with snow at this point now?
Yes.
Like-
Dust, but I mean, it's.
It's not
We
bad.
didn't get that much.
Okay.
So,
Well, the plow hasn't buried it.
Right.
no,
Okay.
no, he's,
Yeah.
he's clearly trying to go around it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's a situation, that road runs east-west. There are times when the sun is blinding at sunset. We have a lot of walkers on that road. If somebody swerves a little bit, it's not gonna be a good
Yeah.
outcome. So, one other thing regarding that project, one of the landowners wasn't thrilled with our marking process. We were a little freelancing with the orange paint, maybe a piece of surveyor's tape that you could take off, but he's got trees that are gonna be orange for the rest of his life.
We can spray over with some black. It doesn't.
So we
it's
just
better.
needed to be a
Yeah.
little more subtle, maybe
Yeah.
a better system.
Well, I think I know, and it's like, and it was already
No
done.
paint. We've had this conversation with certain persons many times.
Some people
Yeah.
are fond of
love
paint,
using
some
it.
not so much, but I mean, you write the word limb
Limb.
with a big
Arrow,
arrow
and
going
it's like,
up.
and it's like, oh my gosh, what did you
Orange
just
flag
do?
intake for one you wanna cut, and blue for one you got a limb on. and
Yeah, it's,
I would think it'd be something.
Yeah.
but that's
yeah.
just something that I
Yeah,
would like to
going
know.
forward.
Yeah.
I'm looking down through the rest of this because we're selectmen's concerns. The letter that we considered signing for is that on here?
For,
The
Brockway.
Brockway
Mill?
obstruction?
oh, it isn't, but I have a copy of it here.
Okay, well,
Right
I
here.
can tell you that Dale and I happened to meet at that location and we
Yeah.
looked at these. I don't see what you guys are seeing.
Nothing, well, I didn't think it was anything, I mean, as long as he's moved the car.
No, the
Because
car's still
he
there.
had
Car's
right
fine.
up,
I don't, that car is further away from Silver's Mills than my truck is sitting in my driveway at my house.
Well, it was, when before snow, it was right almost on the shoulder of Silver's Mills, but, so he has moved it, so.
Maybe, I mean,
Hey,
where it
I'm
was
fine
There's
with
there.
it.
definitely snow plowed up
I'm
against it.
fine with it, if
but
we wanna
it's-
leave it.
Well, as far as actually what I think has happened is, I think we may be abusing the end of that road a little bit, because it is a 3-rod road. So if you stand in the roadway and you look at the upper side, you can clearly see where our ditch is.
Yep,
So our ditch needs to be within our 3-rod. So if you measure from that point, those trailers are nowhere near the town's right of way.
Not even two
And
roads.
I think what had happened, the other piece that's happened over the years, that has just naturally gotten wider out there.
well, and that was my thought,
And the other thing is when they redid that bridge, I know the state actually, they put some gravel in there because they had their building sitting there, and they had equipment sitting there. So I think when all of that moved, it's
Became
kind
part
of
of the
all
road,
the, yeah.
It looks
I
like a
mean,
natural parking area if you
Yeah,
wanted to go
it is.
fishing
Yeah.
there or something.
right.
Yeah.
But it belongs to the landowner,
Oh,
it
and
does.
he's got
Okay.
stuff stored
Stuff
on
on
it.
that, okay.
Yeah.
So I don't see a
And I'm
step
perfectly
close.
fine, that's
Not
fine.
necessarily saying I agree with what's sitting there, but
Right,
that's a
right.
landowner decision.
That's
not a-
right.
It's not within a town roadway or anything, it's nothing for us to look at it that way.
Visually, I can understand that it kind of looks like, gee, I thought that was a parking area, but it's not a parking area.
Oh.
No.
You would
Well, I
think it
knew
may be
the-
a 4 or 5 rod road if you go look at how much where we're
Right.
actually at compared to the, when you go
Right.
back to the ditch.
Yeah,
It's a
I
long
thought
way.
it looked, I mean,
It's really wide.
yeah,
though.
and not knowing how many rod road,
Oh.
when you look
And
at
some
it,
tree road.
yeah.
I just imagined if that
Right.
pickup truck were a pasture pine, would we cut it? And we would not. We would just continue to do what we're doing.
Okay, I'm good with that.
I don't have anything else. Committee reports, item 6.
I don't have any, I don't really have a report, I did hear from Jason on the rec committee, and they have a little bit of budget left, cause they got the main community foundation grant to do the summer concert series. They got 2,400,
You mean the Parks Committee?
Parks and Rec, or however, I'm not sure how they submitted it, I think they submitted it under recreation. But yes, and we have like 1,400 left, but, so we're gonna submit a letter to the community fund to see if we can roll those funds into next year, so they can continue the concert series,
Oh,
basically. So, that's what I've heard from Jason on that. He's working on the letter for the report, town report, and the budget.
Do you have a target date for your first budget committee meeting?
I'm hoping soon,
After New Year's.
after New Year, but the third, I was gonna, thinking 3rd and 4th, but I don't wanna do 3rd and 4th because that's when the auditor's gonna be here. So probably the following Tuesday, we wanna talk about, maybe we could do the 2nd, depending on what we discuss on our January meeting schedule.
Okay. Anything else there? Well, on to new business, January meeting schedule.
So the January, obviously January 2nd is the first Wednesday in January, but there are 5 Wednesdays in January, so if you wanted to go the 9th and the 23rd versus the 2nd and the blah, I mean, we're gonna have a lot of meetings anyway, but your official meetings that you want for this, for the board, what would you prefer?
I think that makes sense.
Second's fine with me.
Second's fine, you think so?
I mean, I
And then
don't have an
second-
issue with.
No, I don't either, but second, and then what? And then we would do
So
the
second-
9th?
No, it'd be
No, it
the,
would be the,
16th.
oh,
So the 2nd and the 16th, and then that gives you 2 or 3 weeks before you get your next meeting in February.
And that's probably the budget committee will have a couple that month, which we may
Well,
attend.
I'm anticipating, yeah, well, that was it, I mean, that's why I was figuring if we spread it a little more evenly in the month, you wouldn't have such a big block at the end of the month with no meeting.
my birthday is the 16th.
Okay, so we
39
could
years
go,
old.
Yep.
we could do the 2nd and the 23rd,
I mean, I don't
or we could do
No, I
the
don't mind
9th
switching
and
it
the
for that.
23rd.
Oh, Oh, okay.
I don't think anybody's celebrating it.
Well, we will be on the Wednesday the 16th.
Yeah, we can celebrate it here. I just realized that.
I'll just take one pizza I have in a bag.
He's got a few.
I did send you the preliminary budget.
Yes.
I haven't sent it to the budget committee yet because I had this one more, AP and payroll. This is gonna be a couple more payrolls, obviously, that's gonna be able to be put in there, but I did want this AP to be factored in there before I sent it off to the budget committee and then with recommended, meeting schedule for them as well.
Sounds good.
So the 2nd and the 16th, we're good on?
Yep.
Okay.
We had a resignation.
We did. He resigned and he said effective at the end of his appointment, which is after the town meeting. I've already replaced him, PJ's, because he's familiar with the cemeteries. I said, hey, would you be interested in
He knows
doing
them like
this?
the back of his hand, right?
Right, exactly. And so he actually met with David. They had just it was a cremation, so that they were just, so he kind of shadowed him on that. He can set his own rates with the funeral homes to how much he wants to charge to dig the hole and blah, blah, blah. So he said he'll give it a try and for this summer and see if it works for him. And so I said,
wow.
works for me. And
Good.
I was happy with that.
They were not, there's no conceivable conflict there about him doing the maintenance or,
No,
No.
no.
well, you just never know.
Well, it could be, I guess, because you never know, but wouldn't see how it would be.
Not as a
We're
contractor.
awarding it.
I mean, if we're paying him,
Yeah.
I mean, if we
Two
were
different
paying,
hats, that's all.
well, that's it, but if we were paying him for mowing as an employee, then it's something different, but it's still not an issue.
So is the sexton appointed?
It's an appointed
Okay,
position,
okay.
yeah. And he gets a stipend, just a
Ah.
one fee stipend. David did say he would continue to do stone repair, because
Okay.
he's a mason, so we do still have that.
But the sexton has no say, nothing to do with the maintenance part of it. So I mean,
Correct.
Right.
as far as a conflict, the sexton doesn't,
Right,
he's not the one that awards the maintenance or the
Correct.
mowing or.
right,
So that's why I say I wouldn't think there would be anything there.
No.
Because they're
yeah,
same area, but they're two different,
right,
non-connected.
yeah,
Even less than the road committee in the sense that
Yeah.
you can be on that committee and
Yeah,
still be a contractor,
sure.
so. Okay, that's
That's
all
good.
good. Town report dedication.
we just happened to discuss that today. What do you think? Do you have anybody in thoughts or
Have you given it a
mind?
thought?
I hadn't given it a thought.
Wait, so you had a discussion?
The ladies
Oh,
and I,
oh.
it just popped in our heads this
Oh.
afternoon, and it's like, oh,
Not
yes.
too early to decide though.
Well, because we're
Yeah.
starting to put together the town
Yep.
report already, so we need to know.
Did you guys have any ideas, suggestions?
Charlie Cleves was one, but I don't know if you want to do one, two. Did you have somebody? I mean,
Alvina would be another example.
oh, that, yeah,
25
Oh, there you
years
go.
of
Yeah.
service.
Yeah, that's a good one.
yeah.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I would say let's all of us kind of talk it up a little
Brainstorm.
bit and get some ideas.
But I like the Alvina one.
Yeah, float some of those suggestions around and see what people think, and maybe by our next meeting, we'll
Yeah.
have something to discuss.
Okay.
Old business, which is really kind of new business. Item 8, adult use marijuana ordinance petition. Did Chris get any correspondence that we got? So he knows what we're about to do, or?
Did I don't think he did.
We,
Do we have an extra copy of it?
Right here.
You could-
The attorney's opinion?
Yes.
yeah, we, as you, I think we said at the last meeting where you attended, Chris, that we were gonna consult the town's attorney, send him a copy of your petition and the ordinance. That's the response that we got back. Essentially, they're kind of cautioning us, isn't that fair? That You really don't, I guess, we haven't talked about it, but I've read it too many times. It seems like they're advising us not to have opted in without a full-blown ordinance that has all the permitting and.
Land use ordinance.
Yeah.
And we don't have anything yet, so they're saying they're suggesting that would be a bad idea for us. I think that's how I took it.
Is she trying to read that?
I'm just, yeah. So what the upshot is that he's saying your petition we do have to advance it. But we should also add another article, another alternative, if you will, and essentially links the ordinance and the adoption of adult use together. So that what the town will be faced with, or the legislative body will be faced with, is your option, or an option that also links an ordinance to it. That's what he's suggesting that we do.
So basically, the bold Article 2, that's his suggestion, his suggested verbiage.
And that, but still without if I'm reading that right, we should have a comp plan first before we would be able to zone, and zoning is one of the things we're interested in.
Right.
And how it's done in different zones.
Right. So yeah, his recommendation first and foremost is to do a comprehensive plan and zoning, which you can do in the same meeting. And then you can do this. Or I mean, you can do this, I think the way they've worded it says.
But the way this is basically saying is, yes, you wanna do this, as long as the zoning part passes.
Correct.
Right.
And once you've completed your zoning, that's kind of your due diligence.
Right.
Then you can the town has given you permission to grant these permits.
Right.
But until we do that, it would never take effect.
Even if this passed.
That's
If
correct, that's how I
The way
interpret
that
it.
they've
If
worded
Article
it,
2
yeah.
is passed.
You've gotta have an ordinance to finally implement adult use.
Yeah.
But this gives permission for both of those things to happen. So the selectmen could start working on an ordinance with you, create committees, everybody's nails down all the details. Once that ordinance is in place, we've already been given permission to do it, so we don't have to take it back and get another vote on it.
You'd have to have it approved though, a vote to approve.
Could the selectmen approve it with a
No.
public hearing?
No,
It
Okay,
has to be,
still has to
Zoning
be
has to be-
voted.
so we take it back, they vote it, they say, we like this one or we don't. Okay, we like it, assume they like it. Then adult use is in place.
Cause it would have all of our regulatory in that land use.
One of the things that he mentions is there's some ambiguity, quite a bit of ambiguity still remaining on the part of the state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some of the towns that are working on ordinances are kind of flying blind.
You're saying yes to something, you don't have any idea what you're saying yes to.
Right.
Yeah, or gee, we don't wanna do it this way. Well, maybe you do have to do it that way, or we'd like to do it this way, maybe you can't. But I think that's gonna be,
I
they're
have
working on it.
some insight into where the process is going, I do have a general idea of what the state guidelines are gonna be. What the planning board and I have talked about wouldn't interfere with any of those. I think the biggest one we talked about was the security would help to make sure if the state skips that step, that we have something in place to say you've gotta provide adequate security. That was, I think, one of the biggest,
yeah,
that and placement in town.
even in the rural areas, I think we'd want to require it fenced.
Yeah, well, those are all the sorts of
Yeah,
variables
yeah,
that,
yeah.
right now, there's nothing on
Right,
paper.
Correct.
right.
But there is, look at the medical marijuana rules. They're not gonna be, there's gonna be some differences within the logistics of it, I guess.
No,
The
but
technicality.
Sangerville doesn't have anything on paper.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
We need an ordinance that addresses all of these variables, the permitting costs, like you say, the where in town, security, all of that. We don't have any of it. And all of that really should be done, according to our attorney, it makes total sense to me, but it's a fair amount of work.
And he referred to the fact that we would, in order to properly zone, that we would need a common plan. But in another area, he refers to, home rule being.
Broad home rule authority.
Yeah.
Correct. Huh.
Yeah, I suspect that our plan will look very different than, say, Bangor's plan. But
By far.
it's still gonna need to have a framework and, like you say, over here, not over there, how big, how small, that kind of thing. How many, I don't know. But the unusual thing, I think, is that we're going to have two distinctly different questions on the same topic on the town warrant. That's what's gonna look different. We're going to have your item 1 and our item 2, the item 2, which is essentially the same thing with the addition of this ordinance clause. That's
Right.
what's kind of unusual.
Because he said that the way it was drafted.
It wouldn't be that unusual, because a few years ago, we had a
We've
similar
had this
article
before.
where if item 1 didn't pass, item 2 was void. We didn't even vote on it, it was
It
totally
passed
void.
over it, because it.
Right,
didn't
and there was,
apply.
I don't remember, it.
I think we
it
still have
was
to vote on the second one. I think somehow we got talking about the first one and it passed over. So, or it got declined because the second one was next, and we did have to vote on the second.
Well, what I wonder is whether they both pass.
But
The idea is that they do both pass.
Right,
Yeah,
but then
right.
which one,
Anyway.
No,
so
then
now
which
do you
one
have,
has-
do you follow Article 2 or Article 1?
one has got to oversee the other.
Well, Article 2 would,
Supersede.
The legal opinion on my end of this is that all my article does is instruct the town to do the process and create rules. It doesn't necessarily say that anybody can open anywhere starting today.
right,
And I feel there's adequate references in there to prevent that from happening, because it does say you have to follow the public law.
if we could just get away with one, we would, but he says that we really can't. He said if it was just a matter of us asking you, would you go with this? But that doesn't look like we can do that. We have to list yours essentially the way it's written, and we can't really add that additional clause regarding
No,
the
you can't
ordinance.
modify his petition in any way. I mean,
We can't, maybe it's not clunky, but I still wonder what happens if on the day of the town meeting, 90 people vote for yours, and then 90 people vote for this one, and so they both pass. So,
Be a good question to ask.
yeah, we'll get it, we'll know an answer, maybe you'll have a suggestion on how to word it differently.
I don't understand what's confusing about them both passing.
Well, one requires an ordinance, one doesn't.
Correct.
Yours doesn't require. an
Yours
ordinance.
has no stipulation for a local ordinance.
Right,
Well, it
It
does, but
does.
the attorney said it was not legally,
Correct.
right, he
Correct.
said it's,
Right.
right,
that this petition can't command the town to do.
Correct.
right,
That-
so he
I
says
accept
it's
it.
flawed.
That, yes, it's very, yeah, that's what he's saying, is that
Right,
it's
right.
in there, but there's nothing to bind the town. He
Right.
supersedes that part with that ordinance, basically. Whereas the other way, we are forced to have an ordinance before.
Correct, it's the step-by-step process. Ordinance will be voted, it will be constructed, accepted, and then we move to the actual going into business. That's, so that's kind of where we're at. I guess we need some, between now and town meeting, we want to understand
Oh, boy, yeah.
how we'll actually process this.
How close are we on a comp plan? I mean, I know you guys worked on one, but it never passed. Would it still be relevant?
No,
No.
no, because they have logistics and population, school enrollment, and all that stuff in it that during the process became invalid. Just in the process, 5-year process of writing the thing. So it takes into.
Is there a digital copy that can be updated? with all of
Or that
that?
you could at least use as a
As a, yeah, starting point.
springboard.
Oh,
Yeah.
some of it would remain the same, natural resources
Yeah,
and historic preservation sites. And we've got an Indian burial ground out near Black Stream somewhere.
Really, I did not know
I
that.
did not know that.
That's cool.
There's a lot of stuff like that in it. But the things that are wrong would take a lot of research to be current. Like our school enrollment, fund sharing and the businesses in town and just,
Well, that sounds pretty easy to me.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, you have to have somebody to
there's so
do it,
much-
it's not
Right,
really
right,
hard,
right,
but
right.
it's time
And
consuming.
so much is
Yes,
now
yes.
accessible.
And it's
where
not,
maybe
it's
when
not
you're-
gonna get done
Probably all
between
you
now
would
and
do.
town meeting,
Right.
not when you throw budget season in. I mean,
Well, does
town
it, does it
report, yeah.
need
That's
to
what I'm
be
saying.
that broad and comprehensive? I mean, all we're asking the legislative body is, do you want us to pursue this? They're gonna green light it. It doesn't, I didn't expect the ordinance to be done for town meeting. I expected it to be, if it passes, we go to work.
yeah. And this attorney's opinion, I gathered that we didn't have to have the town ordinance ready for.
No.
No,
meetings.
Honestly, I
if
wouldn't
they
want
pass
the-
the
I wouldn't
second
want
Article
the-
2.
No, but you would potentially look at another town meeting. I can consult with my counsel. My impression from her was that the town didn't have to vote again on the rules and regulations. It was up to the boards. Because the town passed the general authorization.
That was kinda where I was going a few minutes ago, but.
I mean, that,
No, it has to be done by ordinance has to be by the people.
Right, but because they're voting,
on an
they need to see the
ordinance,
details of the ordinance before they
That
actually
gives you
can
guys
approve it.
the-
No, I don't believe it gives us the
Policy.
authority to do that.
I would.
That's not the way I read this.
But
No.
Yeah, I mean, just because they gave it the permission to work on an ordinance, does that mean that you have the latitude to make the
No.
ordinance anything you want? I suspect not.
No.
Correct.
Jerry, did the comprehensive plan have zoning and all of that type of?
Yeah.
It did?
Yeah,
So do you think any of that would still be relevant?
it would, I think.
So I mean, that's kind of more of the things that we're concerned about,
Yeah,
is that we need.
I think we could, once,
It would be great
If
to
this
have
passed-
get our hands on that comprehensive plan, because I know you worked on it with a lot of people for a long time.
I have several copies. of
Oh,
it.
then, I mean.
Paper or digital?
Paper.
slate.
Well, we worked on it from 1990 to 1995.
And then you haven't touched it since then?
It might be a little out of date.
We did draft another ordinance and brought it to town meeting that was, that had zoning in it. And they turned it down flat. Like, not even the whole planning board voted for it.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And it was a good ordinance, and we should have had that. And it did include, the language for the zoning was tied to our city water sewer.
Yeah,
We
Because that seems,
had only rural urban
right.
zones, but it was good ordinance. And that doesn't give you a lot of courage to spend another year or two drafting a good ordinance. Guilford had one similar, and they passed it right through.
They must have had a good talker presenting.
They don't have many people show up at town meeting.
Well, the people that didn't want it were
Right,
organized
yeah, yeah.
and talked it up really good. Because it had some things in there like moving over 50 yards of gravel from one location to another required a permit, cost. But, so all the contractors was against it, and it had some other language in it people didn't like. And it was a really good ordinance. It would have, if we'd had it, we probably could have added on to it
Right,
as a common plan. We wouldn't be having this discussion. And I have copies of that too. But
But it sounds like
Well,
you got,
it's been-
you got a starting point, you know what people didn't like, so is it, can you modify that and think you might be able to get them to like it? I
Wouldn't be
mean,
much teeth left in it. It wouldn't, I don't think if we made everybody happy to vote against that.
we're not gonna, we all know.
Yeah, but it's been over 20 years. I mean, a lot of things change in 20 years' time, and people may be more amenable to it now.
I would bet the attendance is about the
Years
same.
ago, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
that was
Yeah, but-
only
Since I was in town.
10 years ago, maybe.
Mhm.
I thought you said you worked on it from 90 to 95.
But there was a subsequent one.
Complaint.
The comp plan, so you're talking about this other one.
Yes,
Mhm.
yeah.
Doesn't hurt to
So-
try.
Yeah, it is.
No, it doesn't.
So,
Same people at town meeting 10 years ago, they're now. That's the,
Well, as far as this item goes, we'll have better clarification as to how we'll vote on these, how these will be positioned. But that's what's gonna happen, is, your question is gonna be, as you petitioned, and there's gonna be a similar question, like what you're seeing on that response. It may be altered a little bit, sounds like, but we'll see.
The other thing that it would have been a clearer picture for people to vote on if we had our ordinance and they looked through the town report and read it, and it would have, they'd had a clear picture of what they were voting on. For example, some people may be against it, they might say, well, we don't want them lights on all night in town. Well, the actual ordinance is gonna address lighting.
Right.
So, let's say the planning board and the select board work together between now and town meeting, put together a presentable ordinance, put it first in line, it passes, I still have the option to withdraw.
You can't withdraw.
you don't have an option.
You're
I don't have an option to withdraw on this.
Nope.
And I think this ordinance, this question doesn't change your ordinance, it just has the italics that gives more direction to when it can be actually in effect.
And it's interesting, and when you read the rationale for withdrawal, the mindset from the legislative standpoint was, the people that signed your petition have a right
To vote on.
to believe that that's gonna show in its form that you presented them.
Okay.
So that's why, because I thought, well, gee, he could withdraw if he wants to. No, you can't, so I didn't know that, so we're all learning stuff. But what we could have done, and if we had all gotten together ahead of time, we could have had this question, the question that the attorney's suggesting, on your, and I didn't, we didn't suggest it, but if we had done that, we'd have one question now. So,
I've seen a lot of articles in the town reports that, like what he's got italicized here, just clarifies for the voters what they're voting on.
yeah, I anticipate this will be, or some form of this will be in the town report, so they'll understand why, why we have both of these there. No.
But I also see exactly similar to this, because we did this last year on some of these. That verbiage in italicized would probably stay under that, so you would know.
Right.
Explain it.
Yep.
Right.
I can update the board on what we talked about at the planning board if you'd like, I can do it quite brief. Chris
Oh,
may
yeah.
add to it after I'm done if he wants to. But should this pass, the things we talked about was all related to zoning. And as a planning board, ours is not to question whether or not we like this or anything. It got nothing to do with that. It's all about zoning. And we talked about indoor and outdoor, talked about cultivation, sales, and this, we talked about all those things that's in the petition that would become allowable should this pass. Cultivation, manufacturing, marijuana store. And where we started with it was, initially, we felt like it should be cultivation should be rural, sales should be urban. Just inside, in your face, so that, for example, so that there's not a marijuana store at the end of a dead-end road that they put a chain across, for example, that type of thing. So we started there, but we ended with, we were talking about security, and any cultivation that was done in the urban area would be indoors, therefore secure. So then we'd have to talk about odor and lighting with them, and we talked about filtering and shades and all that stuff. And then, but in outdoor cultivation in the rural district, we would want it fenced and probably even would monitored, or at least security cameras, because it would be a garden that the kids would love to get into, if you know what I mean. Yeah, and they shouldn't, they're not old enough. So we talked about adequate fencing and security in the rural area. In an urban area, it'd be in a locked building anyway. They'd have to break and enter to get into the place. So we've kind of worked through that. And then Chris helped us with the state law part of it about size of these cultivation. And we ended up something like a 10-tier license maximum in the town to include cultivation and the manufacturing and sales, and with so many square feet for a total, and rural cultivation up to 20,000. No, all at 2,000 feet.
What I had in my notes was that the idea would be no outdoor urban cultivation. So the licenses would urban indoor cultivation facilities limited to 2,000 square feet. And there'd be 3 options on that, 3 with those licenses. And then 10 rural cultivation facilities limited to 2,000 square feet. That would be the tier 2 licenses. It would keep these facilities small and few, in reality. I mean, we don't want to jump into this, get over our head and have 120,000 square foot grow facilities open up in Sangerville, because, sorry guys, it's realistic if we do something like that. And just open the doors.
That's going to be a big feature in drafting this ordinance, because even some of your big companies are interested in this. And there are not many places in Maine that have a cultivation ordinance. We could become a target for, who's the...
Morris?
Yeah, Philip Morris, Monsanto, Nestle, you know.
Nestle, Monsanto, they're interested in this.
They're already buying all kinds of property in northern Maine and Putnam County.
But
It's coming.
But we're early on this, very early on it, and I just don't want us to become a target for a 100,000 square foot greenhouse that lights up the whole town.
And I've got to agree that we really need to look at mom and pop operations. The cultivators I've talked to in town are fine with the 2,000 square foot. They may want to get 2 of those spots, and that wouldn't, or 3 to get that tier 3 license. I don't see as though that would violate any issues here, and it would actually limit the number of facilities in town that way. I think 13 for a total on 2,000 square foot grows is sufficient to open the doors with.
This tiering, is that a state?
That's in the state licensing
Okay.
part.
And how many tiers are there?
4.
and tier 4 is 100,000 square feet or plus?
No, 20,000 square feet.
Okay,
Tier 2 is up to 7,000 square, or tier 3, I was going backwards. Let's start at the beginning. Tier 1 is 36 plants or 500 square feet. And there's different license and values involved.
Sure.
Depending on if it's indoor, outdoor, plant count versus square footage. Then you get into the up to 2,000 square foot grow, which is square footage only of your plant canopy. Tier 3 is up to 7,000 square feet of plant canopy.
how many plants is that?
7,000 square feet?
Yeah,
Oh,
36 and 500, right?
1,200 square feet would be about 50 plants.
okay, so,
How's that sound?
yes, yeah, I'm just trying to get a,
You know, you
Handle
could
it.
really
Well, it's
push
36
the
for
numbers and
500.
fit 100 plants into 2,000 square feet, but I really,
so
you're
towns,
setting yourself up for failure doing that, you get things too close.
towns have the authority to limit whatever tier they wanna,
Not necessarily tier, but they have the authority to limit the types and scopes of licenses available.
okay, but so if we, I guess if a town didn't wanna have 20,000 square foot facilities, it could limit them to 10,000.
Yes.
This process is really interesting, because this is why we need an ordinance.
That's right.
Because if we don't have anything,
But if you have two, what's the difference?
what's that?
If you had two of those, what's the difference? You still get your 20,000.
Well,
No,
that's-
in other
But there-
words, we
but
need
you're-
rule, we don't have
Right,
any
right,
structure right now,
yeah.
my point isn't
No, I
that
know.
I want a 10 or a 5 or what. But if we don't have any,
Right,
Right.
then it's, if the first question passes, I'm kind of going back to what we were talking before, and the second one doesn't, which requires us, basically tasks us with creating an ordinance, it's Wild West.
Yeah. If yours passes first, none of this has to happen.
There is no structure.
that's right.
And I think that's
That's
what
the-
the
that's what it
cautionary tone of the attorney is saying to us. You folks need to get your ducks in a row
Right.
before you do this.
Even though you have the petitioner saying the intent is not to open the Wild West, I mean, that's,
Yeah,
Intent doesn't bind
That's
anybody.
right, yeah.
he's saying,
That's like saying, pretty please do this for
Yeah,
me."
right, exactly. I
It
don't,
doesn't
count.
yeah.
without an ordinance, we don't have one, so
Well-
we've gotta have
But
it.
I think it's important to start off slow.
I agree
with the
with
planning
you.
board. I think it's a great idea to crack the door, don't open it all the way, don't let big business in here right off the bat.
But if we may not have that choice
Yeah,
if we don't have an
get this
ordinance.
passed, that's right.
If yours
I
passes,
understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah, yeah,
That's all.
I understand that you're,
I totally agree with
you've
you.
got different legal advice than what I've had, so I mean.
Well, it also pertains to other things that we do. You know, if we have no zoning, if you want to, there was a fear for a while there was gonna be a gentleman's club in this town, and they tried to, and then we
But-
quickly realized you had no way to
There's nothing-
stop it.
Yeah, there's nothing we could do.
So that's just the realities of a municipality. If you have one that has no ordinances or rules, it is kind of the Wild West. But you could have a purple tarp over your Jeep all winter and your neighbors can't say anything too, so anyway. We don't have any rules yet, and we're being cautioned that we should, and as I listen to you guys, I can see why.
Well, yeah.
Because this is quite a Pandora's box here.
So even if, sorry, this is just about growing marijuana. In this environment, it's conducive to grow it outside?
sure.
Not the good stuff, right?
No, I mean.
Well,
would
our
somebody-
season's so harsh, I would
Well,
think that you.
yeah.
There's
well,
so
I mean,
many
you-
variabilities involved that when you enclose your facility and you control the airflow, you control the temperature, you control the light cycle,
Get a better
you're the
yield.
only one to make the error. Mother Nature doesn't have anything to do with it.
Right,
The plant's gonna do what the plant does, just like a cow's gonna do what the cow does when you provided a perfect environment.
right.
So major investments will be in closed facilities. I mean,
Yes,
people aren't gonna plant 100 acres of marijuana, but they might have a 20,000 square foot facility.
most likely in the coming years, you will not see an unenclosed outdoor facility.
Makes sense.
Right.
We have hemp coming out all over the place, that contaminates genetics, that changes things. You are not gonna get good quality bud on an outdoor road in Maine next year. Many people didn't get it this year.
So it's probably basically gonna be an
These are gonna
indoor
be
facility.
indoor facilities.
The private growers, the home growers, they're gonna have plants in the backyard,
Sure.
whether you create an ordinance that says you can't have them in town or not.
Right, no, it's kinda like home brew. I mean,
Yeah.
people dabble in it, and some
People
people's
are
a
gonna
fun
make some
hobby.
spirits,
but-
they're gonna make some beer, it's,
Mhm, mhm,
you know.
mhm.
But there's many people out there that don't want them. Or they don't have the resources, or they don't have the land base, or they got kids that don't wanna have plants in the house, and, you know, there's lots of reasons for them to go elsewhere. At the beginning of the meeting, we talked about the purpose. And what we had come up with was to provide a legal means regulating the cultivation, manufacture, and sale of marijuana that is consistent with the nature and character of the town. I think that clearly defined what we want here. You know, it's a small town, it's a smaller community. Yes, we want businesses in town, but we may not want Walmart here. And this does, as far as I'm concerned, hold right up with the history of the town of being first on stuff. It creates an opportunity, puts Sangerville back on the map for a different reason, other than firearms.
Machine guns.
So why does the town's attorney feel that our town ordinance with this can be drafted subsequent to the
Well, if you use the article with the italics, it says in the italics, subject to the condition that the voters vote to enact. So if you vote yes, that's only subject to a subsequent vote for an ordinance.
subsequent meaning directly after or the month after?
Anytime.
Anytime after.
Eventually.
Eventually, it doesn't have to be on the
Once
same
drafted.
warrant. Right, once drafted. And for the rules and regulations and permit such businesses, a no vote will mean nothing. So that's why he says if we use these italics in that article, then it's making it a subjective. So that if our ordinance passes, if his ordinance passes, it becomes
Then permit requests
Right.
start pouring through the front door.
correct.
And we don't have any structure to really guide this thing.
Right, no structure, yeah, if you look at page 4, the paragraph that starts, it is not clear if the ordinance authorizes the municipal officers or officials. It says, should the ordinance pass, but the town fail to enact further regulations, one could argue that this ordinance is a general authorization without limitation for establishments to operate in Sangerville, because the methods the act permits the municipality to regulate include the general authorization method. It is permissible for a town to simply opt in.
I got it now.
Yeah.
Everything
see.
just fell into place with the
Well,
word.
Ding!
I was thinking, you really need to sit and read this.
Yeah.
Well, it's not fair to you, we just
Right,
handed it to you.
right.
I read it like 3
But no,
times.
between the, now I understand following through that 28B. Yes, it does permit general authorization. Yep,
Mm-hmm.
now I understand where he's coming from in that.
Yeah,
Alright,
so that's why we want to word it with the italics.
And you know what, it's actually conceivable that you yourself might stand up at town meeting and say, I would request that you guys vote on number 2. You could do that. Not saying you should, I'm just saying that we may get to a point where we all agree that's the best thing for the town.
Well, I think what'll happen is whichever one is first, it'll be a motion to approve, it'll be a discussion, and really both articles will be discussed all at one time.
Yep.
Because it's gonna go
Back
back
and
and
forth,
forth
yeah.
on either one, or I would assume that, so everybody would
Yeah,
be
why are we both
educated.
here?
Yeah, yeah.
What is the difference, and why is one, and what's the other one? And it would be how I would see it would happen.
And the way
one
I'm
says let's
reading it,
create some rules, 2 is the rules, is how I view it.
Well,
What,
one
not
says,
yet.
one's authorized,
Yeah, well.
and we hope there's some rules.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
The way I'm reading this is, both of the articles is gonna use that ordinance. So if, doesn't matter which ordinance is voted yes, that's going to be the ordinance, but the one with the italics says, you've approved this, but now let's make sure that we approve the rules and regulations. That's how I've interpreted that. I don't know if you've interpreted it
That's
that.
not how I did it, but.
We would
Well,
have to
I-
write our own ordinance, but the way I read it is it's the same.
That we're voting on that.
It's the same essence,
proposal.
it's just, it's subsequent, it is contingent
Right.
upon rules. The other one is not contingent upon rules,
Right.
so,
Because of how it's written.
correct.
Right, and it has to be on there.
And it really doesn't have anything to do with the intent of the petitioner. He's saying that someone else could say, hey, we're making this argument,
Right.
Right.
and they have a pretty good case in our attorney's opinion.
Not if both pass at the same time.
Yeah, I'm a little unclear on how we're gonna do that. I don't understand how, if one goes, 90 people vote yes, and then two comes up and 90 people vote yes, now they're
And
both
then-
approved, which one do you do? I will get a better answer on how you deal with that. Maybe it's a one or the other, I don't,
Ah.
but typically you have to have yes and no votes on these things.
You do?
If it's it's in separate articles, it has to be, one has to pass, one has to fail.
So if they both pass, I don't know how the second one takes priority. But we'll get an answer to that.
They worded into it.
But that's just, yeah, I don't think.
Yeah, because Chris
One
is,
has to
we
pass,
can't
so
change,
one
his
has to-
cannot be
No.
changed.
Can't change it.
Correct.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, right.
There is,
So-
you can't word it into it.
Right, no, it's. a
That's what I
done
mean,
deal.
is whichever one comes up first is gonna be a big
And the
discussion.
attorney said it definitely needs to be advanced. He found he was
Right.
critical of it, but not critical enough to say pull it. So, it's going.
So alright, for us, for tonight, what do we need to do? Do we make an official
Motion to-
motion to approve?
Yeah, to put it forward
Yep.
to the town warrant.
Both of them.
Vote,
Both
Well,
questions?
we only wanna do one.
Well, we can do ours, the
Anytime.
second one
Anytime.
anytime.
Right, we
We'll
can-
get,
we-
because
we
we're gonna
can
want
get
some
the warrant.
clarification on this 1 versus 2 and how that's gonna work, so,
Right,
yeah,
all the verbiage.
yep.
So for
You're
tonight,
just, if you are advancing the petition to the town warrant
go ahead, Dan.
for that title, which is ordinance.
Haven't you seen a lot of articles though that all this does is clarify what you need to know to vote?
Well, it's like when we did the nomination paper article, we had a big italic underneath it last year.
right.
But again, attorneys know what they're doing.
So we're still.
But wait a minute, Jerry, can you,
27th?
I'm confused what you meant by what you're saying. Could you say,
Say it again.
This italicized portion, a lot of people that they would read it, they wouldn't know exactly how to vote on that. This tells them, a yes vote will authorize the town to opt in and allow these establishments, and subject to conditions of the voters subsequently vote to enact an ordinance.
Correct.
but that's telling you if we use that article.
His
That
article
verbiage
didn't
is-
have this language. His petition did not have that language.
Right,
And
his
we'll-
article.
and
So the people who signed it,
And won't have that italicized
So if I was gonna put an
explanation.
unprofessional, unwritten, italicized under Chris's, his would say something to the effect, a yes vote would allow,
Would opt in.
you would opt in, but the town is not necessarily has to have the ordinances in place. You know what I mean? That's the difference. There's nothing to buy, once that's voted in, and we grant somebody the permit or licensure, if we don't get those rules in place, it doesn't matter, because we've already allowed it to go forward. So going this other way, make sure you
To
have
answer
to have
the ordinance
rules.
question, sir, to my knowledge, when a town votes on an ordinance, okay? And then a revision is presented, or a similar ordinance is presented later on, the latter of the two supersede. So that would be the same regardless if it was 5 minutes before or 5 years later.
But you have
Well,
grandfather
that's the
clauses and
question.
preceding provisions.
Well, hopefully that's the
Yeah,
case.
but
If that's the
you
case,
have
it'll be really
our-
simple.
Right.
That,
Legal
to me,
opinion.
that makes sense. You vote in to authorize rules and regulations, then you vote in rules and regulations. The
Right.
final ordinance is those rules and regulations.
That seemed logical.
That is-
Maybe that's why he sequences it that way in his suggestion. Because he says that I don't think he literally meant it had to be number 2, but
Present mine
yours
first,
should come first, then
then
this
rules and
one.
regulations.
And if that's the
Then you
case,
have
that's
your
very
final
simple.
ordinance.
Yeah, hopefully that's
That's,
the case. Because then it wouldn't even matter which one gets, because you can imagine, this, well, that one got more votes than this one. That's not
No
how,
matter.
they either pass
So
or they don't.
the livestock ordinance, the one from whenever ago, says 0.8 miles from the center of town. The most recent one says 0.5 miles from the center of town, and that's the one that
That would be the one that was standing,
is withstanding.
yeah.
That was my idea as well on the licensing of the manufacturing in the stores, on testing facilities, would to do it with a distance from that center of town that's been designated in previous ordinances, whereas I think Jerry's leaning more towards water sewer district
Okay, yeah.
differences.
Well, I hope you're right about the sequencing, because that makes it really simple.
that would make it very simple,
Yep.
much more logical. Now, in Chris's ordinance, there is no, we can do the testing, there can be the growing, there can be the retail, any of the business related to adult use marijuana, correct? I mean, because in the reading that I've done, you also can limit, you could say, oh, we don't want any testing facilities in Sangerville. We don't want any
Correct.
growers, we only want retail.
Correct.
But your ordinance is saying the whole gamut of adult use marijuana, we're gonna allow all the different steps for that. You know, the growing.
Both do, until you come up with a
Right,
structure.
right.
Correct.
So that's another question, whether we want. all-
Well, that process will
It'll be
be,
down the road.
that will
Right,
be
right.
after we
Way
start
down.
developing our plan.
Right.
Because what would have happened, the way I would see that is, number one step is to move it forward to get to those rules. So that maybe when you go to, say, after it's approved and we go to get the rules, if that doesn't get voted in, it may be why, maybe because we're trying to steer it in one direction and the townspeople,
Say
you know,
no.
maybe they do want a big business to come in here.
I was saying,
Maybe they do
did
wanna
you
see
see
100
the fee
employees.
structure, the analysis that Lois sent us?
Did you see it?
Some of these towns are charging
Just right
thousands and
before-
thousands of dollars for a tier
Sure.
3 facility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Just as a
this,
permit.
this could quickly tip from, we don't want it, to, come over here.
Yeah, right.
I mean, very
Right,
quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
The state license, I believe half goes back to the town. I would think is how they still have it set up, but that may change in the Bablo or DAF's drafting, so.
yeah, but it looks like that they're giving the municipalities
Mm.
quite a latitude on permitting fees.
They
Yes,
are,
yes.
yes, that's my understanding, is
So
that the
you're
town
seeing-
can charge a fee.
All of a sudden, you can see attitudes change.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's all part, we would all
Okay.
work out.
Right.
Once we get
Right,
going with this.
The fee structure
right.
should be closely connected to the town's cost in doing such. In other words, if you've got an app code enforcement, $1,000 a year for enforcement, then you need to recover that expense by
Right, if you're,
municipal fee.
Oh,
if
some
you're
of these-
rating
Right,
$90,000.
Some of these
Can't
towns
we make
aren't looking
money?
at that.
Can't
No, no,
Can't
some of
they-
these towns are looking at,
They're making money.
they're looking at $15,000 fees for a tier whatever. I mean,
For the tier 4.
yeah, but in other words,
Yeah, they're,
it would be like you're gonna
you gotta make it worth
open
their
a
while.
distillery. And okay, fine,
Yeah.
you're
but-
welcome to come on in, but we're gonna charge you, your permit is X.
1,200, yeah.
Yeah, but
15.
that's where this whole scope of things is so wrong. Do you know what it costs to set for a license fee to open a spirits or a brewery?
Well, that's where I think there'll be some pushback.
$300, guys.
Right, if you want to open a lounge, a club,
Sure.
I don't think it's $1,500 or $15,000.
Right.
So I question that these towns are gonna get
They're
away
not
with it.
gonna get away with it all. I mean, a reasonable fee $500,000,
Sure.
somewhere in there, but to say 15,000.
That's almost like a form of taxation, which I'm not sure they have the right
No,
to do.
no, that's,
Some of them are just going by the state, hey, we're opting in,
Yeah.
yeah, around us are.
Right.
If you wanna grow, you're gonna pay.
right, right.
But I think these will get challenged.
I don't know.
I think the first page is what's already enforced, the second page was the town that is proposing, it's right there in
Oh,
front.
oh.
You know, they did
I
the
see.
research to
Oh,
see
proposed
what they
direct
want.
Fees charged,
Yeah. You laugh, but it's
Make it
real.
less
I mean-
lucrative.
Are these one-time permit fee?
I would imagine
Not
that they're
yearly,
one time.
annual?
Renew every
I
6
bet-
months?
I bet
No,
they-
I'm just kidding that. But
Most
my point
licenses
is,
are yearly. I mean,
That's
you're
right,
not-
annual,
It's
when
an
it
annual fee.
comes to
like a
revenue
dog.
of that
I
level,
don't know.
Yeah.
you can see attitudes change really
yes.
fast.
Yeah.
Right,
Right.
but these are all communities where they don't have to go to the voters to approve too.
Yes,
These
Yeah.
are,
In many
Councils.
cases, you're right, they're councils
Councils.
or, yeah, yes. or-
yeah, the other
Fairfield
words
is
falling out of
council.
my brain there, but.
But ultimately, it's legal or it's not.
Correct.
And, you know, they believe that they've got legal standing, we'll see.
The state statute references something in the main or in the, where is it? Hold on.
But all of this could change because they haven't got all this stuff finalized.
That's correct.
that's right.
That's why it's not, I mean,
Well, they have the public law, chapter 409,
No.
which is the adult use. I don't think they've published the medical yet.
but even that is still changing.
I'm sure.
I mean, that's what our letter says, and that's not gonna be finalized till the end of, almost the end of 2019.
So, do we want to,
Sure.
let's advance this and,
All right, make motion to move forward the petition for the next town warrant, an article enacting ordinance entitled Adult Use Marijuana Business Ordinance.
I'll second.
any further discussion? No? Those in favor? 3. It has, it will be moved to the
Still moving on the 27th.
warrant.
Yeah, the planning board is.
Anything further on this?
Special.
Wait,
Oh, they're having a special meeting on the 27th of December,
We are.
so they're on, just specifically on this.
on
Okay.
this,
Yes,
Can we
on
have
this?
that
Okay,
advertised
so that would be one.
at the stores?
What?
yes.
Get the notice out to the community and get some
Sure.
community input?
Yep.
I mean, I know I'm not a board member, but I'd like to invite the select board to come participate if they,
Yeah,
Can
so
find
on the
time.
27th.
the 27th.
6:30,
Yes, yep.
and you're discussing, adult use, land use ordinance? Or how do you want me to word that?
Keep on going with what, we haven't separated out some of this stuff, manufacturing, stores. Then we go through the administration, the variance, gotta have a whole definition section.
So it's discussion to further an ordinance for
Mine aren't the
controlling.
greatest, but if you guys wanna photocopy them and have a copy of
Okay.
what I've taken for notes. Jerry's are probably about the same as mine, maybe a little neater.
Can you put it on the calendar, on the website?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thursday? Next Thursday.
Okay,
Right.
moving on to, item 9, correspondence.
Just 2 pieces. Our boiler was approved at the Public Works,
Great.
and our sprinkler was approved here.
That's it for correspondence? Request for additional agenda items.
I just have one quick thing, I forwarded it to everyone, Lee Wiley had asked about, and thrown that thing out about windmills, a municipal windmill farm.
Oh, no, solar.
Solar.
Oh, I thought,
He wanted to put
oh.
solar up
Oh,
on
yeah,
the
yeah,
old.
solar, municipal solar farm, yeah.
Yeah.
And I just, I told him that I would, see whether there was any interest or traction or anything, or for him to come in and speak or anything like that,
Welcome to come and speak anything.
yeah.
My only, maybe Jerry could answer the question. Are we even allowed to do anything on that ground? I mean, that's, you're not allowed to go up there and dig and put concrete and, I mean, that ground is supposed to
Just be sitting
heal,
and.
right? I mean,
Cooking.
isn't that the
Where is he talking?
old
The
dump?
dump,
Oh, the old dam.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that'd be a.
I don't think you'd wanna touch that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'd stay as far away from that as I could get.
And I just wonder, you know, financially, whether, I mean, you know, I mean, he threw it out there, and I just thought, who has the money to do that?
I thought we didn't own it.
We do own that, don't we? But still, I
Well, I would
mean,
like to, yeah, you know, we ought to, who owns that land? Because remember when we did
That's
that?
what you said
That
last
does not
time.
come up.
That belongs to, his name's not on the tip of my tongue. It's privately owned.
it is?
Yeah.
The
That is-
town has an easement or
Is the town
an
lot?
agreement
Yeah,
for a
we-
certain number of years? I mean,
They had
Why?
an agreement, and when it was up, they returned it to the landowner. And, it was still subject to state testing regulations. and
that
stuff.
we have to maintain because it was our facility.
How any idea where she can get the details of all that?
What's that?
The details, when did that, do you remember when it happened, or? Cause that whole thing is kinda fallen off the radar until,
Yeah.
We got a maintenance issue, we didn't bush hog it enough, and you have to do certain things, and so we're a little unclear as to what's required, and we need to get up to date, I guess.
I can't even remember how long ago it was. I know the planning board and code enforcement had an issue with it because there was some runoff that was crossing the road at the culvert. And the landowner across the road had a garage there. And the town tried to prevent him from turning it into a residence, but we couldn't. So he did drill a well in the septic and
Ooh, ooh.
it's in the, I believe it's in the map and file for any prospective buyers.
Oh, okay.
because that's, remember earlier when I did that of all the town property? I
Mm-hmm, it didn't come
specifically,
up?
no, it's not there, that's
So
why
that's why.
it's like,
it's
why doesn't that come up? I knew it was the old town dump, but it doesn't listed under the town's name.
It's privately owned. Ah, interesting. So
Good,
anyway,
good.
To new business for a second?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think it would be a smart move to start scheduling a public hearing for one of your next select board meetings and get that out of the way for
That's a good point.
the ordinance
Because
on
we
your
have to
end.
have it.
You've gotta have it,
Yep.
you know, I don't know, the
But we-
2nd or the 16th.
Yeah, probably the 16th. Because by then we'll have an answer, we'll be sure as to whether your sequencing theory is right. So we'll know how ours will be worded,
That's why,
hopefully.
till we
We
have
should
it
have-
on January 3rd, I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah,
A
but,
good pull on this by then, I would think.
but
We will have, but we won't, it's,
Yeah.
after we draft it, it's gonna go to the town attorney.
Right,
Yeah.
and we just have to do a 7-day notice for hearing.
They were prompt
I
before
wouldn't schedule it.
on his opinion.
no, I think in the second meeting is when we'll do it, but we'll
Well,
schedule it on the first meeting.
I got it yesterday.
In
It's
January.
been almost 2 weeks.
the second, on the second.
Yeah. If we get the answers we want on the second.
But I
we'll
mean,
schedule it.
they were
That'd be
pretty
good.
thorough on it. I mean, I think they did a good thorough job.
16th, I don't know.
Well, do you?
And they
wanna
called,
change
you know,
it?
they called a couple of times and got more information. I had to send them copies of the petition, I
You
had to
just
send
let
them
us know.
copies of
So, but.
this or
they may not be
that,
here.
planning
Which
Well,
is
that's
board,
fine.
great.
if we had a
We'll
comp
do it the following
plan,
week.
and a land use
You're gonna be
ordinance,
here,
they would have
we'll
taken all of that into
You're not on the
consideration
3rd, right?
had we already had that.
Then we'll talk about it on the
Okay.
3rd. I'm not against moving it, I just.
No, we'll know where we stand on our first meeting in January, then we'll schedule that hearing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, back to, additional agenda items, is there anything else? No? Okay. You're good?
Yep.
Executive session? None? I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Those in favor, we are adjourned.